Hi there, it's Nicole here for Lawn Fawn today, and I have a card featuring the new Owens ABCs stamp set. It's an alphabet stamp set as well as these stitched oval stackable dies, and I've paired them with an older Lawn Fawn stamp set, the Life is Good set. I'm going to start by stamping the crab and the hammock from the Life is Good stamp set. I'm stamping the crab on some smooth white cardstock, and then I created a mask. And I'm going to stamp the hammock there so that it appears like the crab is sitting in the hammock. So when I remove that mask, it looks like one piece. I'm going to do a little partial die cutting here where I'm going to cut the top half using the crab, and then I'll cut the bottom half using the hammock, and I will have one die cut piece. I'll have to do just a little trimming with my scissors. I'm using these Sophisticate's smaller cutting pads. They make it a lot easier to do some partial die cutting. Anything that I do not want to die cut, I'm going to make sure is hanging off of the cutting pads, and then I will run that through my die cutting machine. So that's just cut that top portion of the crab you can see there. I'm going to go ahead and take off the crab die cut and add the hammock. Line that up real careful, and I'm going to do the same thing. I am going to die cut the hammock now, or the bottom half of this design, and I'm going to make sure that the top half is what is going to be hanging off. So I had it wrong. I'm going to flip that around. What you want to cut needs to be in between the two cutting pads. I like to use the smaller cutting pads. I think it gives me more control when doing partial die cutting. You can get the same effect with the regular sized cutting pads if you let that hang off the end, but I do think it can be just a tad bit trickier. Now with this, I kind of took it a little step further so I wouldn't have to do quite as much fussy cutting, and I'm going to cut the ends of the hammock here. You can see I'm just cutting those two very tippy top ends so that I only have to do some fussy cutting or die cutting with my X-Acto knife, just kind of where that crab meets the hammock on those inside portions, so you'll see it here in a second. But that way I didn't have to do a whole lot of that. So there's different ways you can achieve the partial die cutting look. It can be a little bit tricky, but I think it's also a great technique if you want to combine a couple of stamped images like I did here with some creative masking. I am going to go ahead and stamp the two palm trees from the Life is Good stamp set, and that way I can color in all three of these images at once. Once I got a little bit further into the card design, I decided I needed the coconut and a starfish, but I will color those here in a little while. I'm going to go ahead and stamp, or color rather, the palm tree first. And I'm going to do both of these exactly the same. I'm using YG23 and YG17. Go ahead and lay down both of these colors, blend out with my lighter color, the YG23. And if it blends too much, you can go back in with your darker color or even pull in another color if you want to. I'm going to color in the trunk of the tree with E55 and E57. Just doing really easy, pretty quick coloring for the designs here. I went over that a couple times, followed the lines of the stamped image. Now I did go back into the palm tree and pull in a little YG 6-7 to darken up a few areas, trying to just add another dimension to those palm trees. I didn't really like the one on the left, so I went and smoothed it back out with my YG23, and the one on the right I liked a little bit better, and I smoothed it out even more to make it look a little bit better there, and then I went back to my other tree and fixed it as well. So if you don't like how you've colored it, you can almost always fix it. I love that with the Copic markers. You can go over the image as many times as you need to. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the crab. The base color is going to be R24. My darkest color is R39. I'm going to just lay that down kind of sparingly. And my mid-tone color is R46. So I'm going to blend out any of that darkest color and then go back in with my lightest, the R24, and blend it out even more. This is just going to give a really nice finished look. You can go back in with your darkest color if you need to highlight some things or maybe darken up some areas. Once I had him all blended out, I did add some little dot detail with my R39 and R46. Very subtle. For the hammock, I did start with E30, but I switched out right away with YR30, and then I'll use YR31. It's going to give me a nice kind of muted yellow hammock. And then I'll blend out with those two colors. I felt like I needed to pull in an additional color for my shading and things, and I used E55 for the ends of the hammock. And then I'm going to use that right underneath the crab to darken up some of those areas. A little E57 as well for the wood ends of my hammock. There is that image all finished. I'm going to use a black gel pen for the eyes. Next, I am going to die cut the inside portion background of my frame from some smooth white cardstock using one of the stitched oval stackable dies. And I'll also use that palm tree from the Life is Good die collection to die cut both of my palm trees. In the Life is Good stamp set, there is a sandy little beach stamp that fits perfectly along that bottom edge of the stitched oval. So I stamped that there along the bottom, and I'm going to color that in and create some sand all the way down the bottom of this panel. I am going to leave the area from the stitch line to the edge of the oval white, and I'm coloring in my sand using E30, E55, and E57. I'm going to blend that out. Majority of this is going to be E30. I want it to kind of get lighter the further away from the edge or the horizon line that I get. Some E55, going to pull that down a little bit more, blend again. Then I'm going to add some dot detail. Give it a little bit more sand type look. If any of those dots are a little too dark, in E55, you can go over them with your E30. Same with the E57. I added a few dots there, and a couple of them were a little too dark, so I just kind of pounced the E30 right over those. There is what my scene is going to look like. There is the Owen's ABCs. I'm going to replace the word you in the greeting from the Life is Good stamp set. So I'm only going to ink up the Brighten My Life part of the greeting and stamp that with the Lawn Fawn Black Licorice ink. Then I will take the alphabet letters from the Owen's ABCs stamp set and stamp those right above it, and that is going to highlight that word in the greeting. So I'm going to start with the O, and I'm going to stamp that with the Sunflower Lawn Fawn ink. Next, I will move to the Y, and I'm going to stamp that with the Lobster ink. I love how bold and bright these alphabet letters are. And then finally I'll use the fishtail ink for the U. And there is my greeting for my card. Super fun. Next, I am going to kind of create a background here. I don't want my sky to be stark white, but yet I didn't really stamp the background or the greeting with ink that is going to be okay with Copic markers. It might bleed. So I'm drawing in, or I'm kind of just feathering from the horizon line up and then from the top down, a little bit of blue sky using very, very light blue inks, BG0000 and BG000. And then I'm going to draw in some clouds. They're kind of messy. They're not like real pretty clouds, I guess, but I'm just going to gently draw those in and then feather the color out from there. It's going to be very subtle and very light, but it's really going to give the illusion of a blue sky background. And once I get the rest of the elements on the card, I think it all kind of comes to life and looks great. So I'm going to feather that out. If any of those cloud lines are too harsh, I can go over them with my lighter color. I'm going to feather up a little bit from the horizon line again and darken it up a little bit. I felt like it was a little too light. So I went back with BG000 and feathered that in. If any of it's too dark, go in with the lighter one. It has more colorless blender in it and it will blend it out even more. Next, I'm going to create the frame that's going to go around the framed scene from some black cardstock using a couple of these stitched oval dies. I'm going to run them through together, and this is going to give me a great stitched frame that will frame up my entire scene. So I like to use the dies together and just die cut them all at one time. I'm going to set that aside for just a second. And I'm going to stamp a couple more elements on my background. I'm going to stamp the seagulls, both the large and then the small ones, using the Hippo Lawn Fawn ink. I'm going to stamp those right on the background. And then I can move on to coloring in the starfish and coconut there that I added, or I'm going to be adding to the scene. I'll color in the coconut first using E55 and E57. And then I will color in my starfish there with some shades of pink. I'm using RV32 as my base color, then RV34, and I went even darker with RV69 and then blended that out. And I went over it a couple times till I got it just the way I wanted it to look. And then I die cut these with the coordinating Life is Good dies. I'm ready to start kind of putting it all together now, so I'm going to glue my crab in the hammock in place first, then I can attach both of the palm trees on either side. That way I get the spacing right by starting with the hammock first. Using some acrylic blocks just to hold down these pieces until the liquid glue dries. And then I will glue the two small pieces down there at the base of one of the palm trees. I used a combination of the stitched rectangle A2 sized die with one of the large stitched oval dies to do that frame that's around the center piece there. And originally I was kind of going to do white on white, and I didn't really like that. But I kept this piece because I want to give a little dimension to my framed up piece. I'm using a white gel pen here just to accent the sand a little bit more. It's going to just create another layer that gives the frame a little more dimension. So I kept it, even though I decided not to use it for its original purpose, and I'm going to attach that right to my card base. And then I can attach the scene right in the center there. Once I have that, I took some wood grain pattern paper from My Mind's Eye and die cut it with the stitched rectangle die and the stitched oval. So this is exactly how I die cut that white cardstock. And by having the white layer underneath, it's going to give this much more of a substantial feeling and look. And then I can attach that right over that piece, and then I can attach my black frame around the oval opening to frame it up. So it looks like it's a matted oval framed picture kind of there on the front of a card. So there's that really nice subtle kind of whitish gray wood grain. Do a little line of liquid glue around my black framed mat, and I will attach that right there inside the frame, and it is all framed up. And that will finish up my Owen's ABCs card. I hope you've enjoyed this video showcasing a new alphabet stamp from Lawn Fawn, the Owen's ABCs stamp set, as well as the stitched oval stackable dies. The supplies I've used are listed and linked below the video on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.